Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Monday, January 6, 2024. Larry Johnson will be here in just a moment. Is it time to abolish the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA? But first, this. We're taught to work hard for 35 to 40 years. Save your money, then live off your savings. Unfortunately, there are too many threats undermining the value of our hard-earned dollars. The Fed's massive money printing machine is shrinking your dollar's value. Just the cost of groceries is absurd. Let me be brutally honest. I think the dollar is on its way to being extinct, not just here, but globally. The BRICS nations, led by Russia and China, threaten to remove the dollar as the world's reserve currency. Central banks have been shifting away from the dollar and into gold. And if we go to central bank digital currency, that will not only destroy the dollar, but we will lose our freedom. We will lose our privacy. They can track anything we do. You need to take care of yourself and your family. So here's what you need to do. Immerse yourself in knowledge and information. The writing is on the wall. Now is the time to consider shifting some of your dollars into gold and silver as your bedrock financial asset. Call my friends at Lear Capital, the leader in precious metals, investing for over 27 years. They helped me diversify into gold and silver. They can help you too. Call Lear today at 800-511-4620, 800-511-4620, or go to LearJudgeNap.com. Larry Johnson, welcome here, my dear friend. You have written extensively on the FBI dropping the ball in a number of instances, the most recent of which has to do, it's rather startling, with the so-called suicide and explosion of a vehicle outside of the Trump International Hotel and Tower in Las Vegas, Nevada. What are the anomalies there? And what kind of nonsense does the FBI want us to believe?
Well, I wouldn't even characterize. I did use the word anomaly in one of my pieces, but the reality is the FBI is lying, bald-faced lying about how this individual died. They claim, and they said, "Oh, it's backed up by a coroner," that the individual shot himself with a Desert Eagle. Desert Eagle shoots a 50 caliber bullet. It's a big bullet. That bullet is about the size of my middle finger, and it's literally about that long. Okay? It has enormous force. Anybody that's ever shot one of those handguns, it has an enormous recoil. So if you're trying to shoot, and they claim that this guy shot himself in the left side of the head, which means the gun should have fallen to the side, but they said they found it on the front seat, in the front floor. Well, that doesn't make sense, number one. But number two, we have the actual video. In the video, when you go frame by frame, you can see the moment that the explosion starts. And we're told that he died before the car exploded. But you can see very clearly in the video, the individual in the driver's seat, and I refer to the individual because I'm not certain it was this Matthew Leibelsberger, who they claim it was. You see this individual sitting upright, head is upright. You would see the gun in the left hand. You don't see the gun in the left hand. You would see the explosion. A big fireball comes out the end of that gun when it's fired. You don't see a fireball. You don't see a flash of light. What you see is the individual sitting there, and then this explosion starts from down below. Now, some people said, well, he could have exploded the car by shooting the firearm into the battery, except that's not the FBI story. The FBI story is he shot and killed himself, then the vehicle detonated. There's something really, really wrong with this story. Why is the FBI lying about it? The other dimension is this Leibelsberger. He was 18 years in Special Forces, as in part of Green Beret, and his duty assignment. The DoD confirmed this. I saw last night, per Jack Posobiec, that he was assigned to the barracks in Panzer Kaserne. Panzerkaserne is a base southwest of Stuttgart, about 10 miles outside of Stuttgart. But it's not a base where you got a bunch of soldiers housed in barracks and they get out and drill every morning and march around and do their training. It's an admin post. And his real assignment was with a European Special Operations Command, EUCOM, or USOC. And USOC, most likely assignment, inside, not outside, inside Ukraine, working with CIA. He was working on drones. So this Leibelsberger then all of a sudden comes back to the United States. And what's fascinating is there are a bunch of emails and manifestos released that are ostensibly tied to him, except some AI analysis of those materials suggests they're written by two different people, number one. And number two, some of the information that's contained in there, for example, he wrote in this one, allegedly wrote in this one email, yeah, I'm headed to Mexico. Well, the next thing you know, he shows up. He's in Las Vegas. That's not Mexico. He's in Las Vegas.
What do you think is going on here?
I don't know. I would say there's some sort of psychological operation underway. It makes no sense.
Did he have knowledge, or did he express opinions about the drones that have been all over New Jersey in the past month?
Yeah, that was contained in this message, and he also in that message indicated that it was either Chinese, that they were Chinese drones, and that's what I'm saying. This may be part of a psychological operation, a message designed to create some anti-Chinese animus, because he talked about gravitational propulsion systems. Now, some could say, well, he was a Green Beret. He wouldn't necessarily have access to that kind of, to what they call the unidentified aerial phenomena, the UAPs, used to be called UFOs. However, there are, my understanding is there are special operations teams, and a Green Beret could be part of that if there is a suspected UAP that's fallen to the ground and needs to be recovered, that you would have a special military unit go out and do that recovery. And those people involved in such recovery operations would have special access program, aka SAP, clearances. So it's possible he was involved with that. We don't know. The one email message sent out claimed that he held TSSCI unacknowledged special access program clearance for the unidentified aerial phenomena. Maybe true, maybe not. That's why I said there is so much misinformation. And look, the FBI, initially they came out, the report from the government. This wasn't a report from social media. Government said, oh yeah, we tested his DNA and the DNA didn't match his son. And therefore he was upset that his wife had slept around. Well, wait a second. By virtue of his position with it as a Green Beret, the Army already has his DNA. Because, if he gets blown up on the battlefield, they want to make sure that the pieces they recover belong to him. So why do they need to check his son's DNA to find out if it's him? Find out, check your own damn DNA base and say, yeah, it's him or it's not him.
Was somebody else killed in that car and not this fellow?
We don't know. And so you got to ask yourself, why is the government creating such confusion around this? And confusion around the fellow in New Orleans. One of the things they come up with is that, they were all at Fort Bragg, but it doesn't necessarily mean they were all at Fort Bragg at the same time. Hell, I was at Fort Bragg while some of them were there probably, because it's a big base. And the Green Beret, that's where they're trained and qualified. That's where they go through their qualification course on Fort Bragg. And they conduct their final exercise there. Whereas this guy Jabbar, he was an admin weenie. No disrespect to people who just do admin in the military, but he was not a fighter. And yet, when you get down and start looking at all the details about these events, it's Jabbar who has zero experience building explosives, builds 2 improvised explosive devices that have sophisticated remote detonation capabilities. And the 18-year military vet who's actually been trained to build sophisticated explosives has a clown car arrangement of fuel cans and fireworks in the back of his Tesla Cybertruck. Very, very, very odd. So,
have you seen the video of Jabbar taken from the Apple glasses that he had, showing him scoping out Bourbon Street?
Yeah, well, just ask
now,
yourself.
You and I know the government had that video at the time he made it, because everything you do and say and communicate via your mobile devices, the government has.
Well, yeah, they have it
buying, but not putting anything it captures to any good use to keep people safe.
It doesn't really guarantee necessarily that, although it had been collected, that they would have been able to recognize it or identify it as an immediate threat. But ask yourself this question. This guy was in financial straits, difficult straits. He was not making tons of money. He didn't have a steady job. How does he afford a $2,000 pair of glasses? Okay? These are not your $50 bifocals that you pick up at the Kmart or Walmart.
The implication that I'm hearing from you is that Jabbar had help.
Yes.
And Leibelsberger may not be the person who died in that car. Yeah, or if he did, he was murdered. He didn't kill himself.
Those are all possibilities. Because I can say honestly, I don't know. What I do know is we're looking at all of these unusual red flags. That we've got video evidence that the FBI, the government, is lying about how that man died. They said he put a bullet in his head before the explosion went off. Categorical, irrefutable evidence that that's not true. So why are they lying about that? It's not that, our investigators made a mistake. No, come on. And then the other thing is the ID documents. I mean, this was a raging conflagration inside that car, yet miraculously, the passport and the ID card survive. His body's burned beyond recognition, but everything else is, hey, it's readable. We can see who it was. So, and part of what the message released in those manifestos are about how the Chinese are a threat. And the messages released that Jabbar as these Muslims are a threat. We got to watch out for those Muslims. And at the same time, Judge, 2 weeks ago, the State Department, my old office, who had issued a $10 million bounty on the former senior commander of ISIS that had connections with Al-Qaeda, which were claiming that, this guy swore allegiance to ISIS. Yeah, that's Al-Jilani. And we're now taking the $10 million bounty off his head, dressing him up in a suit. I've said it's like, I don't know if you ever watched that television show. I actually did. I admit it. Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. 4 gay guys who go in and fix up some heterosexual schlub, actually make him presentable. That's what we've done with Jilani in Syria. All of a sudden he's wearing a beard and he looked very dignified and, he's not chopping heads off anymore. Right, so you got to say, what's going on here? Because we've got the CIA on one hand, playing buddy with ISIS. And then on the other hand, it's ISIS. We got to be afraid. They're killing us all. And we're being told, the message is out there, we got 1,000 undercover ISIS operatives in this country ready to launch terrorist attacks. Well, maybe we do, maybe we don't. But what I see is a lot of media manipulation going on. Chinese, ISIS, Chinese, ISIS. And yet, the government then turns around and lies about critical aspects of this. Or they cover up information. The guy that tried to kill Trump at West Palm, Ryan Ralph, he reportedly, and I don't have a definitive number on this, at least 20 visits to Fort Bragg over the last 20 years, and or over 140 visits. Judge, I was on Fort Bragg probably between 1994 and 2016, 4 times a year at least. So, well over 100 times. After 9/11, the only way you could get on that base is you had to have a military ID, or you had to have a contractor's badge that you were cleared onto it. Anybody else had to go through a long line and be vetted, etc. And you had to be able to explain why were you going on to the base. You couldn't just show up and say, I want to look around, see what's up. So what was he doing there that many times? All covered up. Well, pay no attention to that man over there. I'm just simply saying that the government's lying about a lot of things or not coming clean with this information. And we need to know why.
Do we need the FBI?
Not in its current form. I've talked to I've got real good friends because I used to work closely with the FBI. They say the problem started really with 9/11, where the FBI shifted from being an organization that was supposed to be investigating criminal activity. And look, everybody says, oh, wait a second. They were corrupt back in the 60s when J. Edgar Hoover was using them to go after Martin Luther King and others. Yes, I admit that. But really if you can make the case the 70s, 80s into the 90s, they were at least focused upon trying to do legitimate investigations without worrying about politics. After 9/11, they became a political outfit, and they have been conducting themselves like the Stasi, like the German secret police in the bad old days of East Germany under Soviet rule.
I can tell you from my end of things that you've probably heard me say this before, Larry, to you personally as well as on air, that since 9/11, a whole generation of federal agents has come of age, basically trained to forget about the Fourth Amendment. Gather the evidence first, let the prosecutors worry about the lawfulness of the gathering, even though these people have all taken the same oath you took and I took to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution.
Yeah.
Is it feasible that we could expect that Trump would do away with the operations department of the CIA, fancy word for the people that murder, kill, torture, conduct coups d'etats, and wage private secret wars?
Well, it needs to happen, but it's unlikely to happen. John Radcliffe is CIA director. What needs to happen is they're going to come in and say, okay, the entire covert action arm of the U.S. government, we're putting a stop to that. That stops now. We're going to stop the color revolutions. We're going to stop paying people to go out and try to overthrow other governments. We're going to stop funneling money to all these non-governmental organizations that are taking and paying people to go to the streets to protest in places like Georgia and Romania. We're going to focus on developing foreign intelligence assets, people who spy for us, people who betray their countries, but give us information about what their leadership, what their military is thinking, doing, and planning. We want information. We're not going to become the political actors. That's my ideal world. Now that's not going to happen, Judge. It should, and that's where the CIA has gone astray. I recommend all of your listeners, if they haven't read the book by Tim Weiner called Legacy of Ashes, that they do so, because he details just sort of one botched covert action after another, and it's been going on since 1947, since the inception of the CIA, and just before.
The NSA is in the Defense Department.
Right.
It's about 10% military and about 90% civilian. You and I, from work we've done elsewhere, are quite familiar with it. Because it's in the Defense Department, it works for the president. He could stop it with a phone call. They capture every keystroke on every mobile device, desktop, laptop, mainframe in the country. Donald Trump himself was personally victimized by this,
right,
by the NSA and the CIA and the FBI before he was president and while he was president.
Correct.
What are the chances that he shuts this down?
Well, there are ways that is supposed that the NSA is supposed to operate, and then as was exposed by Edward Snowden initially, where he said, "Hey, it's unfettered spying on all Americans." The 9/11 was used as the excuse to justify this encroachment on the Fourth Amendment in particular and the Constitution in general. That to justify the government coming in and invading everybody's privacy. And we always use these, that's where these terrorist attacks that you could almost say sometimes are allowed to happen or happen in order to justify, see, if we only had more opportunity to invade your privacy, this wouldn't happen. But it does happen, even though they have all of this capability. And so it becomes an excuse to abuse the Constitution. I believe. Look, I'm a firm believer in that the mission of the NSA. Let's collect intelligence. But as we saw what happened in the case of Donald Trump, very simple example, the British identified George Papadopoulos. If anybody remembers his name, he was initially one of the Trump advisors on oil and energy policy. Right. A young guy with really little experience, but he made the mistake of placing a phone call from London to Corey Lewandowski back in the United States. I don't know if Lewandowski was in Washington, D.C. or New Hampshire. And that phone call was intercepted by British GCHQ. British GCHQ passes that to the NSA. NSA passes that to CIA. And then CIA, working with British intelligence, comes up with a plan to entrap Papadopoulos and use him ultimately as one of the linchpins or predicates to launch the Russiagate investigation against Donald Trump.
Oh,
so
correct.
That's what I'm saying. This was an organized effort that used both signals intelligence as well as human intelligence elements. It used all elements of the intelligence community to go after Donald Trump, and for one purpose, to try to destroy the presidency of Donald Trump.
Fascinating stuff, Larry. You are courageous to articulate it and dogged to do all of this research. Thank you for bringing it to us.
Yeah.
There will probably be more for you to tell us about between now and the Intelligence Community Roundtable on Friday.
Yeah, I don't think you're a great fortune teller. I think you're just a good reader of facts.
Thank you, my man. We'll see you then. All the best.
All right, Judge. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Coming up at 12 noon today, Scott Ritter, and at 4:15 this afternoon on our problems in the economy and with government spending more money than it takes in, Kevin Demerit, Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.